She's not dead. She's alive! You have to believe me!
The morning sun stretched golden fingers across Philadelphia, painting the city in warm amber hues. 5 years had passed since that fateful day at Oakmont Cemetery. 5 years since Micah Dalton pulled Samantha Fairchild back from the edge of death. Life had bloomed in ways neither of them could have imagined. Vantage Tech Industries thrived under Samantha's renewed leadership, and Micah had become an indispensable part of the company's success story. But on this particular morning, as Samantha sat in her corner office overlooking the city skyline, something felt different. A shadow lingered at the edges of her peace, a whisper of unfinished business that refused to be silenced. Her assistant, Marcus Chen, knocked gently before entering. "Ma'am, there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent, and she says she knows Micah from a long time ago." Samantha looked up from her paperwork, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Does she have a name?" Marcus hesitated, glancing at the note in his hand. Emma Dalton. The name hung in the air like a thunderclap. Samantha felt her breath catch. Emma, Micah's ex-wife, the woman who had left him with nothing but a note and a shattered heart. The woman who had disappeared with the child he thought was his daughter. "Send her in," Samantha said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her chest. The woman who entered was thin, her face etched with years of hardship. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands trembled as she clutched a worn purse. She looked nothing like the woman Micah had once described, the one who had smiled in wedding photos, who had laughed in their small suburban home. "Mrs. Fairchild," Emma began, her voice cracking. "Thank you for seeing me. I don't have the right to be here, but I'm desperate." Samantha gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Sit down, Emma. Tell me why you're here." Emma sank into the chair, tears already streaming down her cheeks. "I made a terrible mistake 5 years ago. I left Micah when he needed me most. I took Lily and ran because I was scared, exhausted, and I believed a lie that I told myself would set us free." Samantha leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "What lie?" "The lie that Lily wasn't his daughter," Emma whispered, her voice breaking apart. "I was angry at him for losing his job, angry at the world, angry at myself. My sister convinced me that if I told him Lily wasn't his, he'd let us go without a fight. She said we could start over somewhere new, so I wrote that note, the cruelest thing I've ever done, and I destroyed him." Samantha felt anger rising in her chest, hot and fierce. "You destroyed a good man. Do you have any idea what that note did to him? He nearly died because of you. He slept under bridges, Emma. He stood on the edge of cliffs, wondering if the world would be better without him." "I know," Emma sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "I know, and I've regretted it every single day since. But Mrs. Fairchild, Lily is his daughter. I lied. I have the DNA test results now. I took them 3 months ago because Lily kept asking about her father. She remembered him, his voice, the way he used to sing her to sleep, the butterfly drawings they made together. She remembered everything, and I couldn't keep lying to her." Samantha's anger wavered, replaced by something more complex, a mixture of compassion and protective fury. "Where is Lily now?" "She's outside in the waiting area," Emma said quickly. "She's 8 years old now. She's smart, kind, and she looks just like Micah." "Mrs. Fairchild, I'm sick. The doctors say I have maybe a year left. I don't have money for treatment, and I don't have anyone to take care of Lily when I'm gone. I came here because I heard what Micah did for you. I heard he saved your life, and I'm begging you, please help me tell him the truth. Please help me give Lily back her father before it's too late." Samantha sat back in her chair, her mind racing. This was a wound she couldn't heal with money or influence. This was Micah's past crashing into his present like a tidal wave, and she had no idea how he would survive it. "Does Micah know you're here?" Samantha asked. "No," Emma whispered. "I was too afraid to face him directly. I thought if I came to you first, maybe you could help me find the right words. Maybe you could prepare him." "You thought I'd make it easier," Samantha finished, her tone neither kind nor cruel, just honest. Emma nodded, shame coloring her face. I know I don't deserve his forgiveness. I don't even deserve to speak his name. But Lily deserves her father. That little girl has cried herself to sleep asking why her daddy doesn't love her anymore. And I did that. I made her believe her father abandoned her when the truth is, I stole her from him. Samantha stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city below. She thought of Micah, the man who had risked everything to save her, who had rebuilt his life from ashes, who had finally found peace with Elena and their son Daniel. She thought of the nights he had confided in her about the daughter he lost, the hole in his heart that never quite healed. This will destroy him all over again, Samantha said quietly. Or it will heal him in ways we can't predict. Either way, he deserves to know the truth, and he deserves to hear it from you, not from me. She turned back to Emma. I'll call him here, but Emma, you need to understand something. Micah owes you nothing. If he chooses not to see you, not to forgive you, not to let you back into his life in any way, that's his right. Are you prepared for that possibility? Emma nodded, tears falling faster now. I'm prepared. I just want Lily to know her father before I'm gone. Even if he never speaks to me again, even if he hates me until the day I die, I need to give him back his daughter. Samantha picked up her phone and dialed Micah's extension. Her voice was calm but carried an edge of gravity. Micah, can you come to my office? It's important, very important. 10 minutes later, Micah walked through the door, his face calm and open. He wore a simple gray suit, his hair neatly trimmed, his eyes clear. A man who had finally learned to stand tall again. He had just come from a meeting where he presented a new innovation strategy that had the entire board excited about the company's future. Then he saw Emma. Every ounce of color drained from his face. His hand gripped the doorframe as if the floor had suddenly turned to water beneath him. His briefcase slipped from his fingers and hit the carpet with a muffled thud. Emma, he whispered, the name a ghost rising from a grave he thought he'd sealed shut forever. Emma stood, trembling violently, her legs barely supporting her weight. Micah, No. His voice cracked like thunder. No, you don't get to be here. You don't get to walk back into my life after what you did. You don't get to stand in front of me after you ripped out my heart and told me the child I raised wasn't even mine. Micah, please. Emma reached toward him, but he stepped back sharply as if her touch would burn him. Please what? Micah's voice rose, years of buried pain erupting like a volcano. Please listen. Please forgive. Please pretend that you didn't leave me with a note that made me want to die. Do you know what you did to me, Emma? Do you have any idea? Samantha moved between them, her voice gentle but firm. Micah, sit down, please. There's something you need to hear. I don't want to hear anything from her, Micah said, his voice raw with pain. She left me with nothing. She took my daughter and told me Lily wasn't even mine. She made me believe that every moment I spent loving that little girl was based on a lie. Do you know what that does to a person? Do you know how many nights I sat in the dark wondering if anything in my life had ever been real? She lied, Samantha said quietly, her words cutting through the chaos like a blade through fog. Micah froze, his chest heaved with labored breaths. What? Emma stepped forward, her entire body shaking as she pulled a folded document from her purse with trembling hands. Lily is your daughter, Micah. I lied in that note. I lied because I was angry and scared and exhausted. I said the cruelest thing I could think of to make you let us go. But it wasn't true. It was never true. Here, this is the DNA test. I took it 3 months ago. She's yours. She's always been yours. Micah stared at the document as if it were written in a language he couldn't comprehend. His hand shook as he took it, unfolding the paper with agonizing slowness. His eyes scanned the results once, twice, 3 times, as if his brain refused to process the words. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. A sound broke from his chest, half sob, half gasp, a noise that seemed to come from the deepest part of his soul. His knees buckled and he collapsed into the nearest chair, the document falling from his hands and fluttering to the floor. Lily, he whispered, the name a prayer and a wound all at once. My Lily, my baby girl. She's here, Emma said, tears streaming down her face, her voice thick with guilt and desperate hope. She's in the waiting room right now. She remembers you, Micah. She talks about you all the time. She asks why you never came to find her. She has nightmares where she's calling for you and you don't answer. She still has the stuffed rabbit you gave her for her 3rd birthday. She won't sleep without it. Micah buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs that seemed to tear through his entire body. The man who had stood firm at a funeral and defied death itself now crumbled under the weight of a truth he'd never dared hope for.
Samantha knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her own eyes glistened with tears. "Micah," she said softly, "you don't have to decide anything right now. Take your time. Breathe. We're here." But Micah was already standing, his legs unsteady, but his resolve hardening like steel forged in fire. He wiped his face roughly with the back of his hand, his voice hoarse but determined. "Where is she? Where's my daughter?" Emma pointed toward the door, her hand trembling. "Out there in the waiting area. Should I bring her in or—" "No," Micah said, his voice breaking again. "No, I'll go to her. I'll go to my daughter." He walked toward the door, each step weighted with 5 years of grief, loss, and desperate longing. Samantha followed at a distance, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Emma remained frozen in place, as if moving would shatter the fragile moment. In the waiting area, a little girl sat on a cushioned bench, her legs swinging back and forth. She had sandy brown hair pulled into a ponytail with a blue ribbon, and her eyes, those unmistakable blue eyes that Micah saw every time he looked in the mirror, sparkled with a mixture of nervousness and hope as she looked up at the sound of footsteps. She wore a simple yellow dress with white flowers, and in her arms she clutched a worn stuffed rabbit with floppy ears and a missing button eye. The same rabbit Micah had given her on her 3rd birthday, the day before their world fell apart. When she saw Micah, her entire face transformed. Her eyes went wide, her mouth opened in a silent gasp, and the rabbit nearly fell from her grip. "Daddy?" she whispered, the word barely audible, as if afraid that speaking too loudly might shatter the impossible reality before her. Micah's knees buckled again. He dropped to the floor in front of her, tears pouring down his face like rain in a storm that had been building for 5 long years. "Lily. Oh God, Lily. My baby, my sweet baby girl." She launched herself into his arms with a cry that was part joy, part anguish, wrapping her small hands around his neck and holding on as if she'd never let go, as if letting go meant losing him all over again. "I knew you'd come back," she sobbed into his shoulder, her small body trembling. "Mommy said you forgot about me, that you didn't want me anymore, but I knew you didn't. I knew it. I knew you'd find me." "I never forgot you," Micah choked out, holding her so tightly it seemed he was trying to press her heartbeat into his own chest, trying to make up for 5 years of empty arms and sleepless nights. "Not for 1 second, baby girl. Not for 1 single second. I looked for you everywhere. Every day I thought about you. Every night I dreamed about you. You were always in my heart. Always." "Then why didn't you come?" Lily pulled back just enough to look at his face, her small hands cupping his cheeks, her eyes searching his, as if looking for the truth in the lines around his eyes. "Why did you leave me?" "I didn't leave you, sweetheart," Micah said, his voice breaking into pieces. "Mommy took you away and I couldn't find you. I tried so hard. I went to every place I thought you might be. I called everyone I knew, but I couldn't find you, and I thought you were gone forever." "I'm not gone," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here. I'm right here, Daddy." "I know, baby," Micah whispered, pulling her close again. "I know, and I'm never letting you go again. Never." Samantha stood at the edge of the room, tears streaming down her own face. Around them, employees had stopped working, drawn by the sound of reunion. Some covered their mouths with their hands, tears glistening in their eyes. Others stood frozen, witnessing something sacred, a father and daughter finding each other across an ocean of lost time. Marcus Chen, normally composed and professional, wiped his eyes with his sleeve. The receptionist, Mrs. Halloway, clutched a tissue to her chest. Even the security guard at the front desk had turned away, his shoulders shaking. Emma stood in the doorway of Samantha's office, weeping silently, her hands pressed against her mouth. She had no right to this moment, and she knew it. This was not her redemption. This was the return of something she had stolen, something she could never truly give back, but could only stop withholding. But she had given Micah something back, a piece of his soul he thought was lost forever. And perhaps, in the arithmetic of grace and guilt, that counted for something. Micah held Lily for what felt like an eternity, rocking her gently as he had when she was a baby, whispering promises against her hair. "I've got you now, sweetheart. I've got you. Daddy's here. Daddy's always going to be here." Finally, Lily pulled back again, her face streaked with tears but radiant with joy. "Can I come home with you, Daddy? Can I live with you again?" Micah's heart clenched. He glanced up at Samantha, then toward the office where Emma waited. His mind raced through 1,000 complications. Elena, Daniel, the home they'd built, the life that had no space carved out for this impossible miracle. But none of that mattered. Not in this moment. "Yes," Micah said firmly, his voice steady for the first time since Emma had appeared. "Yes, baby girl. You're coming home with me. We'll figure everything out. But you're coming home." Lily threw her arms around him again, laughing through her tears. "I knew it. I told Mommy you'd come back for me. I told her." And in that moment, as father and daughter held each other and wept, something shifted in the universe. A wound that had festered for 5 years began, slowly, impossibly to heal. Before the story continues, if you're watching from somewhere, leave your city in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happens next in this incredible journey. What do you think will happen now? Will Micah find it in his heart to forgive Emma? How will Elena react when she learns that Micah's daughter is suddenly part of their lives? And what will become of Emma, who is facing her final months? Stay with us. The story is far from over. The drive home was quiet. Micah sat in the back seat of his car with Lily curled against his side, her head resting on his chest, her small hand clutching his shirt as if afraid he might vanish if she let go. Samantha had offered to drive them, sensing that Micah was in no state to navigate traffic while his entire world realigned itself. Lily looked up at him every few minutes, her eyes searching his face as if committing every line and wrinkle to memory. "You look different, Daddy," she said softly. "Your hair is shorter, and you have lines here." She traced her finger gently near his eyes. Micah smiled through the tightness in his chest. "That's what happens when you get older, sweetheart. People change." "But you're still my daddy," Lily said, as if needing confirmation. "Always," Micah whispered, "always and forever." As they pulled into the driveway of the home Micah shared with Elena and Daniel, reality crashed back in like a cold wave. How was he supposed to explain this? How could he walk through that door with a daughter Elena didn't know existed and expect everything to be okay? Samantha turned in the driver's seat, her eyes meeting his. "Do you want me to come in with you? Help you explain?" Micah shook his head. "No, this is something I have to do myself. But thank you, Samantha, for everything." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Call me if you need anything at all." Micah took Lily's hand and walked up the path to the front door. His heart hammered in his chest like a drum, signaling the approach of something monumental and irreversible. He opened the door and stepped inside. Elena was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. The scent of roasted chicken and herbs filled the air, homey and warm. Daniel sat at the table, coloring with intense concentration, his tongue poking out slightly as he worked. Elena looked up when she heard the door, a smile forming on her lips. "You're home early. I wasn't expecting—" Her words died as she saw Lily standing beside Micah, small and uncertain, still clutching the worn stuffed rabbit. The wooden spoon in Elena's hand clattered to the counter. Her eyes went wide, darting between Micah and the little girl whose hand he held so protectively. "Elena," Micah said, his voice thick with emotion. "This is Lily, my daughter." The silence that followed was suffocating. Daniel stopped coloring, looking up with curious eyes. Elena's face cycled through a dozen emotions in the span of seconds: confusion, shock, hurt, and finally something that looked like cautious understanding. "Your daughter," Elena repeated slowly, as if testing the words to see if they made sense. "The daughter you thought—" "The one Emma took." "Yes," Micah said, stepping forward, his voice urgent now. "Emma came to Samantha's office today. She had a DNA test. Lily is mine, Elena. She's always been mine. Emma lied in that note. She lied about everything." Elena's hand went to her mouth, her eyes glistening with sudden tears. She looked at Lily, really looked at her, at the blue eyes that were exactly like Micah's, at the shape of her face, the slope of her nose. The resemblance was impossible to deny. "Oh my God," Elena whispered. Lily shrank back slightly, pressing herself against Micah's leg. Micah placed a protective hand on her shoulder. "I know this is a shock," Micah said quickly. "I know we need to talk, and I know this changes everything. But Elena, she's my daughter. I thought I'd lost her forever, and now she's here, and I can't lose her again." Elena stood frozen for another moment, her eyes never leaving Lily's face. Then slowly, she walked around the kitchen counter. She knelt down in front of Lily, bringing herself to the little girl's eye level. "Hi, Lily," Elena said softly, her voice gentle despite the tears streaming down her face. "My name is Elena. I'm married to your daddy." Lily looked up at Micah uncertainly. He squeezed her shoulder encouragingly. "It's okay, sweetheart. Elena is family." Lily turned back to Elena, her voice small and hesitant. "Are you going to send me away?" Elena's face crumpled. "No, sweetheart, no, we're not going to send you away." "But I don't want to make you sad," Lily said, her voice trembling. "Mommy said that sometimes kids make people sad, and that's why they have to go away." Elena reached out slowly, as if approaching a frightened bird, and gently took Lily's free hand. "Lily, you're not making me sad. This is a surprise, a big surprise. But you are your daddy's little girl, and that means you're part of this family now." Lily's eyes widened with desperate hope. "Really?" Elena nodded, tears falling freely now. "Really, your daddy has been so sad for so long because he thought he lost you. Do you know how many times he told me about the little girl who used to draw butterflies with him? How many nights he cried because he missed you?" Lily looked up at Micah, her eyes welling with fresh tears. "You cried for me?" Micah knelt down beside her, his voice thick. "Every day, baby girl, every single day." Elena wiped her eyes and took a deep breath, steadying herself. She looked at Daniel, who had been watching the entire exchange with wide, curious eyes. "Daniel, come here, sweetheart." Daniel hopped down from his chair and walked over, looking at Lily with frank curiosity. "Who's that?" "This is Lily," Elena said gently. "She's your big sister." Daniel's eyes went even wider. "I have a sister?" Micah smiled despite the tears on his face. "Yes, buddy, you have a sister." Daniel studied Lily for a moment, then broke into a huge grin. "Cool. Do you like Legos?" Lily blinked, surprised by the sudden shift. A tiny smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. I think so." "Want to see my collection?" Daniel asked eagerly, already reaching for her hand. "I have like 1,000,000 pieces. We can build a castle or a spaceship or a dinosaur or—" "Daniel, give her a minute to breathe," Elena said with a watery laugh. But Lily was already smiling, a real smile that lit up her entire face. "I'd like to see your Legos," she said shyly. Daniel grabbed her hand and started pulling her toward the living room, chattering excitedly about all the things they could build together. Lily looked back at Micah one more time, seeking reassurance, and he nodded with a smile that told her it was okay to go, that he wasn't going anywhere. As the children disappeared into the other room, Elena and Micah stood alone in the kitchen. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Elena turned to him, her face a mixture of emotions so complex it was impossible to read. "You should have called me before you brought her home." "I know," Micah said quietly. "I'm sorry. I couldn't think. I saw her and everything else disappeared. I just knew I had to bring her here, that I couldn't let her out of my sight." Elena nodded slowly, understanding flickering in her eyes. "What about Emma?" Micah's jaw tightened. "She's dying, cancer. She has less than a year. That's why she came back. She wanted Lily to know her father before it's too late." Elena absorbed this information, her hand pressed against her chest. "That poor woman. I can't even imagine." "She destroyed me, Elena," Micah said, his voice hard. "She lied and took my daughter and made me believe I had nothing left to live for." "I know," Elena said softly, "and you have every right to be angry, but she brought Lily back. She told you the truth when she didn't have to. That has to count for something." Micah looked at his wife, this woman who had taken a broken man and helped him become whole again, who had given him a son and a home and a reason to hope. And now, without hesitation, she was making space for a little girl she'd never met, a complication that would turn their entire life upside down. "I don't deserve you," Micah whispered. Elena stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. "Yes, you do. You've been through hell and you came out the other side a good man. That's exactly what you deserve." Micah held her tightly, burying his face in her hair. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for not turning her away. Thank you for being the kind of person who sees a scared little girl and says yes instead of no." "She's your daughter," Elena said simply. "That means she's my daughter too. We're a family, Micah. Families make room." From the living room came the sound of children's laughter, Daniel's bright giggles mixing with Lily's more tentative but growing delight. The sound was like music, like something broken, finally being repaired. Elena pulled back and looked toward the sound, a soft smile on her face. "She's going to need her own room. We'll have to clear out the guest room, get her some furniture, and clothes. Does she have clothes? We'll need to take her shopping. And school. We'll have to enroll her somewhere. Oh God, there's so much to figure out." Micah felt a laugh bubble up through the tightness in his chest. "We'll figure it out. Together." Elena nodded firmly. Together. The days that followed were a blur of activity and adjustment. Samantha, true to her generous nature, arranged for Emma to receive the best medical care available at Pennsylvania General Hospital. She was admitted to a private wing where a team of specialists worked to manage her pain and extend her time as much as possible. Micah visited Emma once, 3 days after the reunion. He walked into her hospital room on a gray afternoon, the sky outside heavy with unshed rain that seemed to mirror the weight of the conversation ahead. Emma lay in the bed, pale and frail, an IV drip feeding into her arm. Machines beeped softly around her, monitoring the slow deterioration of a body that had already begun its surrender. When she saw him, she tried to sit up, but he raised a hand. "Don't," he said quietly. "Just don't." Emma sank back against the pillows, tears spilling down her sunken cheeks. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." Micah stood at the foot of the bed, his hands gripping the metal rail. For a long time, he said nothing, just stared at the woman who had once been his everything, who had once stood beside him and promised forever, who had once looked at him with love instead of desperation. "I'm sorry, Micah," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry for what I did to you. I know words don't fix anything. I know sorry doesn't give you back the years I stole. But I need you to know that I regret it every moment of every day." Micah's jaw worked, emotions warring across his face. "You broke me, Emma. That note you left, it didn't just hurt me. It destroyed me. I stood on bridges and thought about jumping. I slept in alleys and wished I wouldn't wake up. I looked at every little girl with blonde hair and wondered if it was Lily, if she'd somehow found her way back to me. You took everything from me." "I know," Emma sobbed, her thin shoulders shaking. "I know, and there's nothing I can do to take it back. I was so angry and so scared, and I thought if I hurt you badly enough, you'd let us go and we could start over somewhere new. I thought I was protecting Lily from watching us destroy each other." "You were protecting yourself," Micah said, his voice hard. "You wanted out and you didn't want to feel guilty about it, so you made me the villain. You made me believe I'd been living a lie so you could walk away clean." "You're right," Emma admitted, her voice cracking. "You're absolutely right. I was a coward. I still am. But Micah, please believe me when I say that Lily never stopped loving you. Every time she drew a picture, she'd ask if we could send it to you. Every birthday, she'd wish you were there to blow out the candles with her. She carried that rabbit everywhere, even when the other kids made fun of her for it. She never let go of you." Micah's eyes burned with unshed tears. "Then why didn't you bring her back sooner? Why did you wait until you were dying?" Emma lowered her gaze, shame coloring her gaunt face. Pride, shame, fear. I kept telling myself it was too late, that you'd moved on, that showing up would just hurt everyone more. And my sister kept saying that you were probably better off, that you'd built a new life and we'd just ruin it. But then I got the diagnosis, and I realized that my pride didn't matter anymore. Lily deserved to know her father, and you deserved to know the truth." Micah was silent for a long time, his knuckles white where he gripped the bed rail. The machines beeped steadily, marking time that Emma no longer had in abundance. "I should hate you," Micah said finally, his voice low and rough. "Part of me does. Part of me will probably hate you until the day I die." Emma nodded, tears streaming silently. "I understand." "But you gave me the truth before it was too late," Micah continued, his voice softening just slightly. "You brought Lily back to me when you could have just let the lie stand forever. And for that, I won't carry the hatred anymore. It's too heavy, and I've got a daughter to raise. I've got a second chance I never thought I'd get, and I'm not going to waste it being consumed by anger." Emma looked up at him, a fragile hope flickering in her dying eyes. "Does that mean you forgive me?" Micah was silent for a long moment, his eyes distant. Then he shook his head slowly. "No, I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness isn't something I can force, and right now I'm not there. But I won't hate you, Emma. For Lily's sake and for my own peace, I'm letting go of the hate. That's the best I can do." Emma nodded, fresh tears falling. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you, Micah. Thank you for taking care of her. Thank you for being the father I always knew you were." Micah didn't respond. He stood there for another moment, looking at the woman who had once been his wife, who had given him his daughter, and who had also given him the deepest wound he'd ever known. "Lily wants to see you," Micah said finally. "I'll bring her by tomorrow. But Emma, when you talk to her, don't put your guilt on her. Don't make her feel responsible for fixing what's broken between us. She's 8 years old. Let her be 8 years old." "I will," Emma promised. "I just want to tell her I love her. That's all." Micah nodded once, then turned and walked toward the door. "Micah?" Emma's voice stopped him at the threshold. He paused but didn't turn around. "You were always a good man," Emma said softly. "I'm sorry I made you doubt that." Micah's shoulders tensed, then relaxed. Without a word, he walked out of the room and didn't look back. Over the following weeks, Lily visited her mother regularly. Elena often came with her, sitting quietly in the corner while mother and daughter talked, played card games, and made what memories they could in the time that remained. Emma declined quickly. The cancer was aggressive, and even with the best medical care, there was only so much that could be done. But she faced it with a quiet dignity that surprised everyone, especially Micah. On her better days, she told Lily stories about their time together, carefully edited to leave out the hardship and pain. She told her about the day Lily was born, about her first steps, about the time she dressed up as a butterfly for Halloween. On her worst days, when the pain medication made her groggy and confused, she would simply hold Lily's hand and whisper, "I love you, baby girl. I love you so much." And Lily, with the resilience of childhood, absorbed it all, the love, the loss, the bitter sweetness of finding her father while losing her mother. 6 weeks after Emma appeared at Samantha's office, she passed away quietly in her sleep. Lily was at school when it happened. Elena was the one who received the call. That evening, Micah sat Lily down in the living room. He held her hands gently, searching for the right words. "Sweetheart," he began, his voice soft. "Mommy went to sleep last night and she didn't wake up. She's gone, baby." Lily stared at him, her blue eyes wide and uncomprehending. "Gone where?" "To heaven," Micah said, tears spilling down his face. "She's not in pain anymore. She's at peace." Lily's face crumpled. "But she didn't say goodbye. She didn't tell me she was leaving." "I know, sweetheart," Micah said, pulling her into his arms. "I know. But she loved you so much. Every single day we visited her, she told you that. And that love doesn't go away just because she's not here anymore." Lily cried then, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her small body. But she cried in her father's arms, and Elena sat beside them with her hand on Lily's back, and Daniel brought his favorite stuffed animal and placed it in Lily's lap without a word. They held a small funeral at Oakmont Cemetery, the same cemetery where Micah had once worked, where he had heard the conversation that changed everything. It felt like some kind of cosmic poetry, though Micah wasn't sure if it was cruel or redemptive. The service was quiet and brief. Samantha and Jonathan attended, standing respectfully in the back. A handful of Emma's distant relatives came, people Lily barely knew. At the graveside, Lily placed a single white rose on her mother's casket. Her hand trembled as she set it down gently. "Goodbye, Mommy," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'll be okay. Daddy's here now. He's going to take care of me." Micah knelt beside her, wrapping his arm around her small shoulders. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere. I promise." As they walked away from the grave, Lily slipped her hand into Micah's. On her other side, Daniel reached up and took her other hand. "You're my sister now," Daniel said seriously. "That means we're a team. Teams stick together." Lily looked down at him, tears still wet on her face, and managed a small smile. "A team?" "Yep," Daniel said firmly. "Forever and ever." And as they walked through the cemetery, past the headstones and the memories, past the spot where Micah had once made the choice to speak up instead of stay silent, the first fragile threads of a new family began to weave themselves together. Life slowly found a new rhythm after Emma's death. Lily enrolled in Riverside Academy, the same private school that Sophia attended. The two girls, already acquainted through family gatherings, became inseparable friends. Every morning, Micah walked Lily to the bus stop, and every afternoon he was there when she came home. He helped with homework, attended parent-teacher conferences, and learned to braid hair through many hilarious failures and YouTube tutorials. Elena became the mother Lily had never really had, patient, kind, and endlessly supportive. She taught Lily to bake cookies, helped her pick out clothes for school, and held her when nightmares about her mother woke her in the middle of the night. Daniel appointed himself Lily's official protector and best friend. When a boy in her class made fun of her worn-out rabbit, Daniel marched right up to him and said, "That rabbit is special. You're just jealous you don't have anything that special." The boy never said another word. Slowly, carefully, Lily began to heal. She laughed more. She drew pictures again, butterflies mostly, just like she used to. She started calling Elena Mom without even realizing she was doing it. And when she did realize it, she looked terrified that she'd done something wrong. But Elena just smiled and said, "It's okay, sweetheart. I'd be honored to be your mom." At Vantage Tech Industries, Micah continued to thrive. His work in innovation and his mentorship of young engineers had made him indispensable. But more than that, his story, the janitor who saved the CEO and then rebuilt his shattered life, had become something of a legend within the company. People looked at him differently now, not with pity, but with respect, not as a man who had been broken, but as a man who had survived being broken and had chosen to put himself back together. Samantha promoted him again, this time to Senior Vice President of Innovation and Development. The announcement was made at a company-wide meeting, and when Micah stood to accept, the entire room erupted in applause that lasted for 3 full minutes. Afterward, in Samantha's office, she poured them both a glass of wine. "You've come a long way from the storage room at Oakmont Cemetery," Samantha said with a smile. Micah laughed, a sound that came easier now than it had in years. "Sometimes I still can't believe any of this is real. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up under a bridge somewhere and realize it was all a dream." "It's real," Samantha said firmly. "And Micah, you earned every bit of it. Not because I'm grateful, though I am, but because you're brilliant and you work harder than anyone I know. You've transformed this company's entire approach to innovation." Micah looked down at his wine glass, a slight smile on his face. "You gave me a chance when no one else would. You saw something in me when I couldn't even see it myself." "You saved my life," Samantha said simply. "How could I not see your worth?" They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. "How's Lily adjusting?" Samantha asked. "Better every day," Micah said, his face softening the way it always did when he talked about his daughter. "She still has hard moments, times when she misses Emma or feels guilty for being happy, but she's strong, she's resilient, and she's surrounded by people who love her." "She has her father's strength," Samantha observed. Micah shook his head. "No, she has her own strength. I'm just grateful I get to witness it." Months turned into years. Lily grew from 8 to 10 to 12, blossoming into a bright, compassionate young woman with her father's eyes and her mother's artistic talent. She and Sophia remained best friends, creating elaborate art projects together and entering them in school competitions. Daniel grew too, his fierce protectiveness of his sister never wavering. When Lily was 13 and a boy in her class broke her heart, Daniel, only 9 years old, marched up to the boy and said, "You made my sister cry. That wasn't okay. The entire school talked about it for weeks." Micah and Elena's love deepened, strengthened by the challenges they'd faced together. They had taken in a grieving child who wasn't theirs by birth and made her theirs by choice, and that act of radical love had changed them both in profound ways. Samantha's company continued to flourish. Under her leadership, Vantage Tech Industries became not just a powerhouse of innovation, but a model of compassionate corporate culture. Stories of employees being given second chances, of the company investing in people rather than just profit, spread throughout the business world. And always, in the background of every success, was the story of the janitor who stopped a funeral and the billionaire who came back from the dead. But peace, as it so often does, proved more fragile than anyone wanted to admit. 10 years after that fateful day at the cemetery, a new crisis emerged that would test everything they had built. It began with a phone call. Micah was in his office reviewing proposals for a new artificial intelligence initiative when his phone buzzed, an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Micah Dalton," he said. "Mr. Dalton, my name is Rebecca Torres. I'm an attorney representing the estate of Lydia Harrington." Micah frowned. The name was vaguely familiar, but he couldn't place it. "I'm sorry. I don't—" "Lydia was Emma's sister," Rebecca said gently. Micah's world tilted. Emma's sister. the one who had convinced Emma to leave, who had told her to lie about Lily's paternity. "What do you want?" Micah asked, his voice cold. "Miss Harrington passed away 6 months ago," Rebecca explained. "In her will, she left a letter for you. She requested that it be delivered to you 1 year after her death, but her estate has been settled early, so I'm reaching out now. Would you be willing to receive it?" Micah's first instinct was to say no, to hang up and pretend this call had never happened, but curiosity, and perhaps something deeper, made him hesitate. "What's in the letter?" he asked. "I don't know," Rebecca said honestly. "It's sealed. But Miss Harrington was very specific that you should receive it. She said it contained information you had a right to know." Micah closed his eyes, a familiar dread settling in his chest. "Fine. Send it to my office." 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived via courier. Micah stared at it for an hour before he finally opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, pages and pages in cramped, urgent script. "Dear Micah, if you're reading this, I'm dead. Good. I don't deserve to face you in person for what I did. My name is Lydia Harrington, and I am the reason your life fell apart. I am the reason Emma left you. I am the reason you lost Lily, and I am writing this letter because I need you to understand what really happened, because Emma is gone now and the truth died with her, except for this letter. When Emma called me, desperate and exhausted, I saw an opportunity, not to help her, though I told myself that at the time. I saw an opportunity to get money from you. I convinced Emma to tell you that Lily wasn't your daughter. I told her it was the only way you'd let her go without a fight, that you'd be so hurt you wouldn't come after her. But that wasn't the real reason. The real reason was that I was planning to come back a year later and blackmail you. I was going to tell you that I knew where Emma and Lily were, and that for the right price, I'd tell you. I was going to bleed you dry little by little for information about your own daughter. But things didn't go the way I planned. Emma and Lily moved in with me, and I got to know that little girl. I watched her cry for you every night. I watched her refuse to let go of that ridiculous stuffed rabbit. I watched her draw pictures of you and her together, and every single picture broke something inside me. I realized that I had destroyed something innocent and pure for money that I didn't even need, and I was too much of a coward to fix it. For 5 years, I stopped Emma from contacting you. Every time she said she wanted to tell you the truth, I convinced her it was too late, that you'd hate her, that it would only cause more pain. I kept you and Lily apart because I couldn't face what I'd done. And then Emma got sick, and I watched her realize that she was going to die with this lie between you and her. I watched her finally stand up to me and say no more. She got that DNA test without telling me. She went to Samantha Fairchild's office against my wishes. She gave Lily back to you despite everything I'd done to prevent it. Emma died thinking she was the villain of this story, but she wasn't. I was. Emma was weak and scared, but she came back. She told the truth. I never would have. I'm writing this letter because you deserve to know that Emma loved you. Even at the end, even when she was dying, she talked about you. She said you were the best man she'd ever known, and that she'd spent 5 years regretting that she hadn't been strong enough to be the woman you deserved. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't want it. I just wanted you to know the truth. And I wanted you to know that Emma's last words, right before she went to sleep that final time, were, "Tell Micah I'm sorry. Tell him I never stopped loving him. I'm sorry, Micah." For what that's worth. Lydia Harrington. Micah sat in his office, the letter trembling in his hands, tears streaming down his face. All this time, he'd believed Emma was the architect of his destruction, but she'd been manipulated, controlled by someone who saw his family as nothing more than a potential payday. And Emma had found the strength to break free at the end. She'd told the truth even though it destroyed her pride. She'd given him back his daughter, even knowing he might never forgive her. He thought about the woman in the hospital bed, frail and dying, who had looked at him with such desperate hope when he'd visited. He thought about how she'd thanked him for taking care of Lily, how she'd called him a good man. She'd been trying to tell him something, he realized now. She'd been trying to tell him that she was sorry, that she'd always loved him, that the lie had never been what she wanted. Micah folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Then he sat in the silence of his office and grieved for the woman Emma had been, for the marriage they might have had if Lydia had never interfered for all the lost years. But he also felt something else, a sense of closure, a sense of understanding. Emma had been broken by her circumstances, manipulated by someone she trusted. But in the end, she'd found her courage. She'd done the right thing. And maybe, Micah thought, maybe that was enough. That evening, he went home and pulled Lily aside. She was 14 now, tall and graceful, so much like Emma, but with his steadiness in her eyes. "I got a letter today," Micah said gently, "from your Aunt Lydia. She passed away, but she left me something she wanted me to know." Lily looked up at him, curiosity and wariness mixing in her expression. What did she say? Micah chose his words carefully. "She told me that your mom loved me, even at the end, and she told me that a lot of what happened, why your mom left, why she lied, wasn't entirely your mom's fault. Someone was influencing her, making her believe things that weren't true." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Mommy really loved you?" "She did," Micah said firmly, "and she loved you more than anything in the world. She made mistakes, big ones, but she fixed them when it mattered most. She brought you back to me because she wanted you to know your father. That took courage, sweetheart. Real courage." Lily threw her arms around Micah, crying against his shoulder. "I miss her sometimes." "I know, baby girl," Micah whispered, holding her close. "I miss her too, but we're going to be okay. We have each other, and we have our family, and we're going to be okay." And in that moment, with his daughter in his arms and the truth finally laid bare, Micah felt the last piece of the puzzle slide into place. On the 15th anniversary of the day Micah stopped Samantha's funeral, they gathered once again at Oakmont Cemetery. But this time, it wasn't heavy with grief. It was a celebration. A memorial had been erected, not just a plaque, but a beautiful stone bench beneath a flowering cherry tree. Engraved on the bench were the words, "In memory of the day death was defied and life was restored. May we never forget that courage can come from the most unexpected places, and may we always remember that second chances are life's greatest gift." Lily, now 18 and preparing to start college, read the inscription aloud. Beside her stood Daniel, 15 and already as tall as his father, and Sophia, who had become like a sister to them both. Elena and Jonathan stood with their arms around each other, watching the young people they'd helped raise. And Samantha and Micah stood side by side, two people who had been to hell and back, who had faced death and betrayal, and emerged stronger on the other side. 15 years, Samantha said softly. "Can you believe it's been that long?" "Feels like yesterday," Micah said, a smile playing at his lips. "Feels like a lifetime ago." "Both," Samantha agreed. Lily turned to them, her eyes bright. "Dad, will you tell the story again? The real story, not the version that's on TV." Micah glanced at Samantha, who nodded encouragingly. So they sat on the memorial bench, Micah, Samantha, and the children who represented their future. And Micah told the story once more. He told them about the dark days when he'd lost everything, when he'd slept under bridges and wished for the end. He told them about the night he heard a conversation in a parking lot, and how he'd wrestled with whether to speak up or stay silent. He told them about standing at a funeral and shouting the words that would change everything. "She's not dead." And he told them about the journey after, the trial, the reunion with Lily, the forgiveness he'd struggled to find, and the family that had grown from the ashes of loss. When he finished, Lily wiped tears from her eyes. "You saved her life, Dad. But she saved yours too, didn't she?" Micah looked at Samantha and she looked back, and in that glance passed 15 years of gratitude, respect, and unshakable bond. "Yes," Micah said simply, "we saved each other." As the sun set over Oakmont Cemetery, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, the group stood together in silence. They were not the same people who had stood in this place 15 years ago. They had been broken and remade, wounded and healed, lost and found. But they were here. They were alive, and they were together. From ashes, dawn had come, and it was more beautiful than any of them had ever dared to imagine. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below sharing a time when someone showed you unexpected kindness, or when you found the courage to speak up when everything told you to stay silent. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next journey into stories that heal, inspire, and remind us that no matter how dark the night, dawn always comes. Thank you for being here with us on this incredible journey.